I'm Christy Pelzel, correspondent for Today News Africa, based in Washington, D.C., and I'm here with Simon Ateba, the publisher for Today News Africa. Our guest today is Kolawole Oluwadari, Deputy Director of Nigeria's Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, also called SERPA. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Christy. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Last month, June, your organization, SERPA, and 176 approximately concerned Nigerian citizens filed a lawsuit at the ECOWAS court in Nigeria, which is located in the capital, Abuja, over the Twitter ban and a threat that those who use Twitter might be prosecuted. Can you tell us why you decided to sue the government?
Thank you very much, Christy. First and foremost, the government's directive banning or suspending Twitter, depending on the choice of words, is unlawful. And we had made that clear at the outset, along with a lot of Nigerians. So when the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the chief law officer of the Federation, came out to say that anyone found using Twitter, because a lot of Nigerians have had recourse to VPNs to access Twitter, will be prosecuted. We felt now there is a need to approach the courts to forestall any kind of punitive action on the part of government against anybody. You would understand that the municipal courts, the local courts in Nigeria were on strike at that time. The judiciary workers were on strike. So we only had recourse to the ECOWAS court, the regional court, with Nigeria being a key signatory of the ECOWAS treaty, which is why we approached the courts. And we're very happy that the court gave a decision in our favor. What we did was to file an application for provisional measures, a sort of an interim application for the courts to declare to restrain the government from arresting anyone, pending when the court determines the legality of the Twitter ban.
I'd like to go back to the beginning for just a moment. So on June 4th, the Buhari government announced on Twitter that it was suspending Twitter in Nigeria over what it described as the persistent use of the platform for activities that are capable of undermining Nigeria's corporate existence. The ban came after Twitter deleted some of the president's tweets, saying that it violated the platform's policies. The deleted tweets referenced the 1967 Nigerian Civil War, and it discussed treating those misbehaving today in a language that they'll understand. Facebook did the same thing. They also removed some posts. And so on June 5th, the Association of Licensed Telecommunications in Nigeria announced that they had received orders and instructions, which they complied with, to block Twitter. And the state also directed all television and radio stations to stop using Twitter. What do these actions say about freedom of expression and free and open exchanges on the web?
These actions of government, starting from the way you chronicled them, is not good for democracy, how much so for the freedom of expression. But to situate the Nigerian government action in historical context, this is not the first time we've seen this administration, that is the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, take such steps to either stifle the civic space or the freedom of expression as it is. And that is what we've seen with the various legislative activities at attempts aimed at passing legislation. The first of its kind is the social media bill, which was between 2019 and 2020. After the public hearing, it died at the floor of the National Assembly. We also had the hate speech bill, which came up once at the National Assembly, and it also died due to popular campaign against it by the citizens. The government also tried to push to an NGO bill because the civil society organizations are a key part of the civic space in their advocacy to check against the check of arbitrary use of powers by the government. That also did not sail through at the National Assembly. And we've seen this government persistently use agencies of state who naturally have regulatory powers over the media to give unlawful directives. A case in point is the National Broadcasting Commission, which is the agency that regulates media houses in Nigeria, issuing instructions to media houses to delete their Twitter, to deactivate their Twitter account, calling Twitter unpatriotic. And these are made up of media houses, private-owned media houses. for that matter. And we've seen the MPC also give unlawful directives, sometimes invoking punitive sanctions against media houses for whatever they perceive as of coverage that is not good. Mostly any kind of views expressed on those media platforms that appears to be critical of government. And so this action situated within that context shows that this government is against the freedom of expression, and they are backing up their stance with various forms of action to make sure that people are not able to enforce themselves freely. And that is in spite of the various constitutional provisions that do not only guarantee freedom of expression, but also hold the government to enforce those rights.
Okay, Christy, if I may jump there. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Oluwadare. We know that Nigeria is holding a presidential election in 2023. And the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, is barred from running for a third term. Do you think that these actions, silencing opposition, arresting protesters in Abuja and everywhere in the country, do you think those actions have anything to do with the 2023 presidential election?
I doubt that, and it would be very hard to draw that correlation. As it stands, there are no key players as it is that have either emerged to contest for the presidency, and so it's too early to draw that line.
This latest crackdown, suspension of Twitter, how does it affect Nigerian in a practical term? How do Nigerians use Twitter?
Of course, you know, Nigeria are very social people and very expressive people. So Twitter stands for a social meeting point, and of course it holds economic value for a lot of people too. You see a lot of people using it for their skits and to advertise. Even the networks do use it for advertise. So yeah, and it's a very good platform where people express their views. It's a melting pot of ideas, if you can call it that. And some of those ideas naturally may not be palatable to the government, but it is very important for government to hear those views. And possibly government can make that argument that some people say some kind of what borders on hate speech on Twitter. But what would have expected the government to do, like particularly the president in deleting his tweet, would have been to take that formally using the community rules of Twitter. And it's ironic to note that the President Muhammadu Buhari is reacting against the breach of his own fundamental rights of expression to use Twitter. And in doing that, he has removed the rights of over 30 million Nigerians who use Twitter directly and a host of others who benefit from Twitter indirectly. It's ironic. I'm smarting from that deletion of his tweets. He need not have done that. The economic value, the loss from this ban really cannot be totally assessed as of now, but I can tell you it will run into millions of dollars for so long as the ban is in effect.
So do Nigerians still have access to Twitter right now?
Yeah, people use VPN, and some organizations who have offices or out of Nigeria also tweet. But for the average ordinary Nigerian who you either use VPN or you can tweet at all. So while you find some Nigerians still using VPN to tweet, a very significant percentage do not have access to Twitter.
Has anyone been fined or jailed over the use of Twitter since the ban?
No, we are yet to find anyone being prosecuted. And that SERAP had stated that earlier, that anyone that has been arrested or harassed will take up that case. But to forestall that is why we approached the court.
I know that Buhari came to power in 2015 promising drastic changes. And he promised to fight corruption, destroy Boko Haram, and rebuild the crumbling economy. How will you access his government 6 years in power?
I can only do that from the viewpoint of what SERAP stands for. And you would understand that SERAP is not political, not religious. We basically stick to our socioeconomic rights advocacy in the interest of Nigerians. So judging the President Muhammadu Buhari on his anti-corruption initiatives on the yardstick of transparency and accountability, which is a very good way to assess whether government has fared well or not, particularly given what we do at SERAP, I would rank the president low. Again, it is need to understand this is not in terms of either his economic policies or his ability to reduce poverty, but on the transparency and accountability mechanisms of his government.
I understand there was supposed to be a meeting between the Buhari administration and Twitter. Is that going to take place?
I am not sure. We've had various conflicting reports from the government about whether a meeting had taken place or will take place, or what are the issues to be discussed. But our position is, without prejudice to whatever Twitter agrees with government, freedom of expression is a right we have constitutionally guaranteed, and also by the African Charter, which Nigeria is a signatory to, by the way. So we will stand to uphold that, whether Twitter has any kind of agreement with government or not, particularly with the antecedents of this government. It is time to rise to fight this now, or it might be too late.
Have you engaged at all with any international partners in this matter, specifically the United States, from a legal standpoint, a tech standpoint, or government support?
Not formally. We have not done that formally. And what we've seen most times, we may not necessarily get the kind of support we need in terms of leveraging on the powers of the international community in matters of this instance. But it's a viable advocacy alternative, but we are yet to do that formally.
Yeah, what type of support do you need?
It would be great to have. I've seen the U.S. government issue a public statement in that regard, but it should go beyond that. We're not talking of sanctions here, but we should see international organizations throw their full weight behind the issues of civic space and importance of freedom of expression. It goes beyond the public statement, which to my mind, it was either there nor there when it was issued. We would expect them to be backed up by some kind of action. We are yet to see that happen.
And do you think the Nigerian system is broken? Because every month I see SERAP issue statement on lawsuit, and some people were telling me on Twitter that SERAP sues all the time but doesn't win anything. What will be your response to those people?
Well, that's funny, because we do, at the last count, we have 11 judgments against the government that is yet to be enforced. So we do get judgments, and it's important to understand that these are strategic litigations. They are public interest litigation that are meant to invite the court to make pronouncements on matters of public interest. And these issues are cuts across everyone. It benefits everyone if they do come out. For instance, look at the ruling by the ECOWAS court. It's a benefit to everyone, including public officers themselves that have been found to use Twitter after the ban. So we do win cases. A case in point, we had the judgment that last month, ordering that was 2019, ordering the Attorney General to take steps to challenge state pension laws, which drains our purse annually, billions of naira annually. That is yet to be enforced. We've had judgments against the president, asking him to make some disclosures on public funds. We are yet to get that enforced. What we've seen with this kind of allegations, which I would say are of no moment, is people perceive that in playing our lead role in advocating against abuse of power, people see us as possibly they think this is the work of the opposition, but no, that is not the point. And that is why the point needs to be made that these issues that we are advocating against now is going to benefit everyone ultimately. These individuals who are in power presently are first and foremost citizens before they got political power. And ultimately, they will leave that power to become citizens. And though some of these legislations and these government institutions are using against the people now, will ultimately be used against them. That is the point to note very clearly.
What are the next steps for the lawsuit and SERAP?
The substantive hearing was adjourned by the ECOWAS court to the 6th of July. That's next week. And we would expect the government, they have filed their papers, and we expect the arguments to go through. And we're looking forward to the court holding finally in our favor that the ban itself is unlawful and it conflicts with the African Charter. That is what is next. But we are also reaching a complaint to the African Commission, calling on that body to leverage on its powers. Nigeria is a signatory, is a member of the African Commission, and is subject to the treaty to prevail on Nigeria, not to only obey the order of the court, not to harass and prosecute or arrest anyone, but to also lift the ban as it is. But we are yet to get any kind of a response from the African Commission in that regard. So what we intend to do is to focus on the argument in court on the Twitter ban suit on the 6th of July and continue with our advocacy to make sure that government obeys the pending order and that no one gets hurt in the process.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Christian Simon. Nice to speak with you. Bye then.